over 30 years, Point of Grace has shared music, faith, and friendship with listeners across the country. Now Denise, Lee, and Shelley are inviting you into their circle. Welcome to Circle of Friends, the podcast.
It's Point of Grace.
Each week they're talking real life, current events, stories of true friendship, wisdom from God's Word, and all their favorite things. If you're looking for a little company, a few laughs, and a lot of Jesus to hold it together, Circle of Friends, the podcast, is waiting for you. Subscribe now wherever you listen or watch podcasts, and circle up with Point of Grace.
Life Audio.
Welcome to the TMUS podcast, where we share how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together. Hey, everybody, we are Ted.
And Ashley Slater. So most marriages don't fall apart in one big moment. They drift there, slowly and quietly. You can be in the same house, doing life together, and still end up on autopilot. Today, we're talking about 3 simple rhythms that help keep a marriage connected, and not through big gestures, but through small, intentional patterns that actually change the direction you're heading. So, Ted.
Hello.
We have talked before about how we both work from home.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I do have days during the week where I'm driving teenagers places.
Many hours per day.
Yes, we probably still are at home together a lot more than other couples.
Oh, yeah. Not only in the morning and the evening, but like during the day.
Right. Like we're recording this at like 11:30 on a Friday.
Yes, we are.
So
because I am home.
Right.
In my pajamas working.
Yes, exactly. So some people might assume that means we're just automatically connected just because we're in the same space so much. Mm-hmm. But I think that what we've learned is that you can be physically near someone all the time and still slowly drift into autopilot if you're not paying attention.
Right.
And I think that can happen in any marriage, whether you're both working at home or not. And so, like, as I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, so what are some signs that a couple might be on autopilot? And here are a few ideas that both us and the listeners can kind of go, okay, is that us? So a lot of times it shows up as more surface level communication. Like we're still asking, how was your day? But we're maybe not really listening to the answer.
Okay.
Or we're eating together and not talking as much as we used to. Or maybe not making as much time to hug or kiss or say thank you. Sometimes it can even show up as having like the same arguments over and over again, I think over small things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the tricky part is that the longer a couple's married, I think the easier it is for, these patterns or being on autopilot to kind of fade into the background and everything starts to feel normal. So we might not even notice them anymore and know that we're on autopilot.
Sure, just status quo and nothing changed, nothing different.
Right. Like these patterns could be like our default settings.
Right.
They're the tiny repeated moments and not the big dramatic ones that are quietly shaping what our marriage actually feels like day to day. And we've talked about that before, how marriages usually don't change in big dramatic ways. They change slowly, quietly, and over time. And that's kind of both comforting and scary, because it means we don't usually wake up one day in a great place or a bad place. We sort of just drift there.
Right.
Because we lose intentionality. So today, I want to kind of talk about 3 rhythms that can keep us from living on autopilot. And they're not like rules or try harder ideas. They're just patterns that we can notice and maybe tweak a little bit so that we're bringing that intentionality.
Yeah, this sounds like it'll be really helpful.
So, but before we jump into those,
yes,
let's take a quick break.
In a world that constantly asks more of us, caring for our spirit matters. Get Your Spirit in Shape is a free 30-minute podcast from United Methodist Communications designed to help you pause, reflect, and reconnect with God. Each episode features casual, thoughtful conversations with leaders of the church who share wisdom, encouragement, and spiritual practices you can actually use in daily life. Think of it as spiritual nutrition, along with simple exercises to help you get and keep your spirit in shape. Whether you're new to faith or have been walking with God for years, Get Your Spirit in Shape offers space to listen, learn, and grow, one conversation at a time. Find Get Your Spirit in Shape wherever you get your podcasts and make taking care of your spirit part of your weekly rhythm.
Health insurance rates are surging in America, leaving millions without affordable options. If you're sick of having paychecks eaten up by healthcare costs or dealing with mega corporations, then listen to this. Christians don't need to waste money on a broken system. That's why I want to tell you about Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's an alternative to traditional health insurance at half the cost. With CHM, fellow believers contribute monthly to help pay each other's medical bills. There's no enrollment period, so you can join anytime. And you aren't restricted to provider networks, so you choose the doctors and hospitals you want. It's that simple. CHM is not insurance. It's a ministry that puts faith into action. Feel the difference of financial support and biblical care from fellow believers. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
So today we're talking about 3 rhythms that matter, I think, whether you're newly married or maybe even matter more the longer you've been married. Some of these things we may have touched on in past episodes, but I like having them all together here. So the first one is shared connection rituals.
Now, I think I can figure out what that means, but maybe explain or give examples or something.
Well, like last year, I wrote an article for newlyweds where I suggested a few rhythms they could practice intentionally. Mm-hmm. And like one of these shared connection rituals was eating meals together.
That's a good, easy to achieve goal.
Right. And the thing is that eating together, yes, it's about the food because you like food, but it's not really about the food. That's a bonus. It's really about slowing down and actually noticing each other and taking the time together.
Yeah, you figure Jesus did a lot of that with his buddies.
Right.
He built relationship around meals. So yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, you see a lot of that in Scripture of food being involved.
Right, and it could be, breakfast or dinner, or we could meet somewhere for lunch or ice cream or whatever. Coffee.
Very good. Okay, so basically, like the point of a shared connection ritual isn't necessarily the activity, it's the repeated choosing. Like repeatedly doing that. Mm-hmm. Because like we've already said, long marriages don't usually lose connection all at once. It fades in tiny, boring ways. Like couples just slowly stop building in those on-purpose moments that they were more intentional about doing earlier on.
Seems right.
And I think what's interesting is that when we're in the middle of these shared things, like eating food together or, taking a walk or sitting on the couch at night or running errands together instead of separately, things like that, we don't always realize which little moments are doing the real work, which moments are connecting us. Sometimes it's not till later, unless we're being extremely intentional, that we look back and think, oh, that actually mattered more than we realized.
Right. Yeah, I saw a video recently as I was doom scrolling. Confession. And it was of an older couple, and it looked like he was like in his last day of life. Okay. And she was just with him and talking, and they were probably reflecting on all those times they had just eating a meal or, holding hands or doing simple stuff together. And it was their last couple of moments in life. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of the importance of the little stuff.
Yeah. Well, and this is not quite as moving and touching as that, but we finally finished The Office last night. And in the last episode, Andy says he wishes could know you were in the good old days while you're still in them.
All right.
And that kind of reminded me of this too.
Right. That reminds me of a very short poem I read from somebody years ago. It was like, these are the good old days. Just wait and see.
It's like, can we know that right now?
These are the good old days.
I do try to remind myself of that with parenting since it goes so fast.
It does.
Well, I think one thing that we've noticed when it comes to rituals is they do change with seasons. Like what works in one decade, or worked when we were newlyweds, doesn't magically always work in the next. And so we have to replace them because they don't keep going. So we've had to reinvent some of our rituals. Like we used to when our kids were younger, we would eat dinner and watch TV after they were in bed.
They're in bed by 7.
Right.
And now they're in bed by after us.
Right. We have college-aged and daughters and teenage daughters. And so that's no longer, that's not our time, you and me time anymore.
Right. No, that's a good point.
So we have to look for other ways to have connection time together because that has changed.
Good insight. Yeah.
So I think that the takeaway for this one is connection doesn't survive on nostalgia. It survives on maintenance.
I need to make a meme out of that.
Right. There we go. And a shared connection ritual can be tiny. It doesn't have to be a weekly date night, although those are nice. We need to get back into the swing of those. The holidays kind of disrupted that. I mean, it can be 10 minutes. It can be something simple and even something kind of dumb, like us watching the cats do something ridiculous together and laughing together.
Which is frequently.
Yes, exactly. When we can find
cats.
them. It just has to be something that's on purpose. And honestly, I think that's what keeps a marriage from slowly turning into, just a friendly roommate or business partner situation.
Nice.
All right, you ready for number 2?
Number 2.
Number 2 is meaningful communication. And by that, I don't mean we talked today. I mean, did we actually connect? And I think one of the things about the longer couples have been married is how efficient marriages get. Like,
Is this a good thing, bad thing?
It's a thing.
It's a thing, okay.
It's a thing. Like, we get really good at logistics. We exchange information. We coordinate schedules. We solve problems. And all of that is good. So it is a good thing.
So something that may have taken 20 minutes 20 years ago now takes 3 minutes.
Right. But it might multiply. There might be more of it to do. But none of it automatically makes us feel close. It might make us feel productive. Like when I ask you if you can drive someone somewhere, you tell me you're headed to the grocery store and ask if I want to add anything to the list. That's communication, but it's not necessarily connection. And so I think that...
So how can that kind of communication be augmented or updated into connection?
Yeah, from what I've seen and read, it's really about staying like emotionally reachable, like our hearts are open to each other and we're still connecting in the conversation. Like, we don't check our emotions at the door. We still notice things and check in. Like, I mean, okay, you going to the grocery store, like, you might get me something that's not even on the list because you've been noticing or hearing that I mentioned something. And so that kind of logistic thing can turn into a connection point because you brought something home that you made note of.
Like a special piece of cat furniture, for example.
Yes, that's not from the grocery store, but yes, that cleans up our room.
Entryway.
Yeah. So I think things like that, couples who stay emotionally close aren't necessarily the ones who talk the most. I think they're the ones that make the most of their talking.
Oh, that makes sense. That's good.
And I don't think, so it doesn't have to be like intense, serious conversations where we sit on the couch and we stare at each other.
It could be, though.
It could be. Yeah. Sometimes it's like small things like asking better questions or putting our phones down or listening instead of waiting for our turn to talk, which is something we've talked about on the podcast recently as well. And I think it sets kind of the emotional climate, which is a big deal. I know if we're getting along, any challenge feels way less daunting. Than if there's tension between us. So, meaningful communication isn't about having perfect conversations. It's really just about keeping our hearts open to the other person. Well, let's take another break. But when we come back, we'll share one more rhythm we can practice as couples.
In a world that constantly asks more of us, caring for our spirit matters. Get Your Spirit in Shape is a free 30-minute podcast from United Methodist Communications designed to help you pause, reflect, and reconnect with God. Each episode features casual, thoughtful conversations with leaders of the church who share wisdom, encouragement, and spiritual practices you can actually use in daily life. Think of it as spiritual nutrition, along with simple exercises to help you get and keep your spirit in shape. Whether you're new to faith or have been walking with God for years, Get Your Spirit in Shape offers space to listen, learn, and grow, one conversation at a time. Find Get Your Spirit in Shape wherever you get your podcasts and make taking care of your spirit part of your weekly rhythm.
Health insurance rates in America are surging, leaving millions without affordable options. But Christians don't need to waste money on a broken system. Christian Healthcare Ministries is an alternative to health insurance at half the cost. With CHM, fellow believers contribute monthly to help pay each other's medical bills while lifting one another up in prayer. It's financial and spiritual support when you need it most. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
So we are talking about 3 rhythms that we can practice as couples, and the last one might be the most important one.
Okay, let's talk about it.
And this is accountability and repair. So as we've talked about, long marriages usually don't break up because of one big thing or one big blowout. They slowly weaken because of little moments that never quite get fixed. We all hurt each other sometimes, and that's not the issue. It's really what happens after we hurt each other. Over time, we can either get better at coming back together or we can get better at building quiet distance.
Quiet distance?
Yeah.
That sounds rough.
I know, right? Well, and we've talked about, accountability is really about taking responsibility for our own attitudes, words, and actions when we've hurt each other. Mm-hmm. That's pretty straightforward.
Absolutely.
But I think, as I've said on the podcast before, repair is more of a new concept for me in the last couple of years.
Right. What would that look like? What's an example?
Dr. John Gottman defines repair as any statement or action, silly or otherwise, that keeps negativity from escalating out of control.
Okay, that sounds important.
So repair doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's an apology. Sometimes it's humor. Sometimes it's just saying, hey, I don't want things to be tense between us. So I think sometimes, say we're having a conversation and it's starting to get weird, or it's starting to
get weird,
really negative. If one of us kind of turns it in a more lighthearted way, or redirects, or instead of digging into whatever's going on is okay, yeah, let me think about that, or yeah, let's talk about that later. Things like that keep it from getting further and further into the negative and hurtful.
Right. And it's not we're not encouraging a flippant sort of response or making light of a situation, but just helping not devolve into, like you said, this cycle of negativity. Right.
And if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I read Gottman's 7, relationship tips. I can't remember the name of the book, but if you look for it on Google,
right,
or Amazon, you'll find it.
It says a lot of helpful things.
Oh yeah. And he said, I think repair is one indicator of the couples who are more likely to have a happy, successful marriage. Wow, okay. Is that they can practice repair.
Okay. So you ended on the most important of the 3.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's really helpful in this area is also realizing that people need different kinds of apologies, which is something Dr. Gary Chapman talks about. Mm-hmm. Some people need to hear regret. Some people need change behavior. Some need reassurance. And when we learn, what constitutes a genuine apology to our spouse, it helps us better take accountability and practice repair, I think, when things are going south.
Excellent.
Yeah. All right. Well, to recap, here are 3 rhythms that don't just matter when you're newlyweds, but might matter even more the longer you're married. 1, shared connection rituals. 2, meaningful communication. And 3, accountability and repair. Which brings us to this week's Us Time Challenge. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll share that.
In a world that constantly asks more of us, caring for our spirit matters. Get Your Spirit in Shape is a free 30-minute podcast from United Methodist Communications, designed to help you pause, reflect, and reconnect with God. Each episode features casual, thoughtful conversations with leaders of the church who share wisdom, encouragement, and spiritual practices you can actually use in daily life. Think of it as spiritual nutrition, along with simple exercises to help you get and keep your spirit in shape. Whether you're new to faith or have been walking with God for years, Get Your Spirit in Shape offers space to listen, learn, and grow, one conversation at a time. Find Get Your Spirit in Shape wherever you get your podcasts, and make taking care of your spirit part of your weekly rhythm.
Americans have a big healthcare problem. Over 100 million citizens carry medical debt while paying for overpriced and complicated health insurance. As Christians, we don't have to pay for a broken system. Christian Healthcare Ministries is an alternative to health insurance at half the cost. Plus, you can enroll at any time. Stand up to health insurance with a biblical solution. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
So this week, for our Us Time Challenge, we want you to have an honest conversation with your spouse about whether you might be drifting into autopilot in any area of your marriage. And this might take a little bit of time to figure out, because if it's a pattern, it might feel normal and you might not even realize that's what it is. Or you might realize and your spouse might not, or they might realize and you might not. So then together, decide on one small shared connection ritual you want to add this week. And it doesn't have to be big or complicated. It just has to be something you're doing on purpose. That's the big word here. Do it on purpose.
So we need to find a time that's available for us to go on a date.
Yes.
That's our Us Time Challenge.
Right.
Let's find a date night.
And eat food together.
And talk about this. That's good.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Team Us podcast. We're looking forward to next time as we keep talking about how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together.
Team Us with Ted and Ashley Slater is a production of Life Audio and Salem Media. If you liked what you heard today, please take a second to rate and review the podcast in your favorite podcast app so that more listeners like you can find the show. For more faith-filled, inspirational podcasts, visit us at lifeaudio.com.
Looking for ways to stay positive? Brighten your day with the Free Story Behind podcast. Hear weekly short stories that showcase true joy, love, and hope. Listen now at lifeaudio.com or by searching for Story Behind wherever you get your podcasts.